start doing much more.
We recently had issues with noise and others, and I don't believe the DEP was involved in it at all.
Okay, we certainly check on that. But when we deal with some of the nuisance type things, noise and orders, we try to coordinate usually with the community. We handle some, but we'll certainly follow up on that.
Okay, and a quick question about how, so as you know, the facility that we're talking about for over 20 years have been a municipal landfill, and then since 1970, it's been accepting ash. And my concern and my question is, does the Mass DEP have any intention of ever shutting this landfill closed?
Well,
Is that something that we can see in the foreseeable future, or is that going to be a forever solution?
well, as you know, the facility is in, they have an application for
Another expansion.
for another expansion. But as you know, the Vice Chair may also be aware, we at DEP have also stated in NEPA comments and other settings that there is a height limitation on the landfill, anything above 50 feet. That would be treated not as a regular permitting type of activity for DEP. They would need to go through what would be considered a site assignment process, which means they would have to demonstrate that they're complying with the environmental requirements set by state, and it would also have to go through a local Board of Health process. So while they're in for permitting right now, once they hit that 50-foot cap, they're in a very different kind of process, a process in which it's not just DEP's decision, but it's also the community's decision.
Thank you. Well, as you know, would DEP be supporting the town's decision? Right now, I'm sure you're aware the town voted to cap all landfills at 50 feet. So it is something that the town does want. So is that something that the DEP would support? Well, how many more things or hoops would the town have to jump through if they want to keep it at 50 feet?
Well, again, the town will have much more of a say in a site assignment process. You know, we would look to see how the project would fare against both our environmental criteria as well as the local permitting requirements. So if there's a local bylaw in place, I think that's a pretty significant factor for the company.
Okay, thank you.
It's Representative Keith and then Representative. Yes.
Thank you. Mine is more of a comment, I guess, than anything. And it's something that I was made aware of by the 5th and 6th graders at Lakeview School in my district. And they asked me to come in and talk to them because they realized that their milk containers had changed. And now they've gone from the carton, paper carton, to a plastic bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very upset at what they saw as trash being generated by their school and by their classroom. So we did a little math project, and we kind of threw out all the high school kids because they don't drink milk so much, but lowered the number and multiplied it by 180 days and found that it was 1,350,000 plastic bottles that were being discarded every year. So it was interesting for me to realize that this is something our young people are so aware of. And they're taking it further now, and they're looking at the cubic measurement of that waste and trying to figure out how it fits in Lakeland, just to give it some context. But I just wanted to share that because I think that it would be important, and maybe you're already doing this, but to be looking within our systems. So not only schools, but hospitals and colleges, and really kind of incentivizing, as the senator said, that together we make this difference. I'd like to find out more about how that decision was made in my town and maybe have some impact with these 5th and 6th graders. And then secondly, I just wanted to say that I'm aware of some of the decisions that have been made in Ireland because I have family there. And they nationally did something about plastic bags probably about 12 years ago. And it was because their countryside is one of their greatest assets. And as a nation, they were, determined not to have bags all around in the hedgerows, right, or in the trees. And I just think that, Massachusetts can have the same kind of pride for our own asset of our beautiful natural places. And if we could think about a campaign that sort of raises up that kind of awareness for everyone, for our kids, because in my generation it was litter bug, shame on you. And it just went in your head, and you just don't forget that. It's a lifetime of understanding the impact that one person can have with the small things that we use, and we need to discard them. Right? So I just thought I'd share that. And I don't know if you have anything to come back to in terms of schools.
As a Central Mass resident, one town over from Worcester, it's always impressed by the work that the students do, and it is really important. Again, I think you're absolutely right. Awareness and making sure that we're supporting the infrastructure. We are trying to make sure that we are getting to people that are trying to figure out how to do the right things and setting it up, whether it's our Recycling Works program for businesses or our recycling dividends or strategic recycling program, or again, just the technical assistance that one of our recycling coordinators can provide. I think we'd be up for it. You're right. There are a lot of partnerships. As I indicated to the chair, there are so many opportunities, and there's really, it's a question we need to keep asking ourselves: are we getting to people, and what are the new opportunities? In terms of schools, I don't know if Greg, there's any particular things we could.
Yeah, but I would have you guys look in. We do have a program called the Green Team, which is for K through 12 schools. And it both provides a lesson plan on waste management, some exercises to do, but also we provide equipment to help schools set up programs. So in the case of moving away from cartons and to a plastic, which may not have been their choice, the person just delivered the milk that day, whoever the producer has it up, and they went, oh, okay, I guess that things have changed. But they can set up a program. We can provide them with the containers to help establish that program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioners, for an excellent presentation. I just wanted a quick question again about the information provided on the website. My connection here is rather slow, but I always have constituents asking me about what to recycle, what not to recycle, what goes in the trash, what doesn't. How can I get that more information, via my social media, via the website? Because even for myself and my wife, we recycle a lot. We continuously have constituents asking, how can I get a second container, things of that nature.
No, yeah, thank you for the question. It's very timely for us. On our webpage, you can do one of two things. I think we tried to make it accessible if you're a homeowner. You click on for homeowners. We try to make it accessible for businesses. If you click on business, if all else fails, put recycling in the search bar. Thank you. Put recycling in the search bar up in the corner, and that'll get you there. But in terms of resources beyond DEP, I don't know if Greg, there's a particular website or link or something you'd want to offer up now. But
one of the things we do is off of our website, you can get to all the municipal programs. So we have a link it goes to municipal program, because like I said, their program is maybe slightly different, they get picked up every other week, weekly, whatever it is, but we will link you to that, their municipal program, which is the place where if you want a new bin, you want something like that, you want to call the local program. The other piece is we just launched about a year ago is something called Beyond the Bin. And it's really it's a website that has a bunch of companies interested in recycling those types of materials that aren't supposed to go into the recycling bin. So textiles, furniture, appliances, all those types of things, electronic equipment, to try to direct people to other resources that they can go to and where they can take those kind of what we call difficult to manage waste.
Are there any incentives to municipalities? Because I know this was a big question when I was serving as a city councilor in Amesbury. There were folks that would say, I want weekly recycling, weekly trash pickup. I could weekly recycle and every other week of trash pickup. And I know that the municipality would talk about the expense in doing that. Are there any incentives, for municipalities financially to weekly recycle? Because I know the cost and you reimburse so much.
Yeah, there is a cost factor to that. We've seen communities who maybe provide recycling collection every other week, some provide it weekly. Some people have been starting to pick up trash every other week because they're collecting organics also. We do have a program, as the Commissioner mentioned, called the Recycling Dividends Program, and it rewards them for putting in place best management practices. And those may include having a textile recycling program, or having weekly collection, having a pay-as-you-throw program. All of them, it's basically like a mileage program. You get your points, you get everything, you get a certain amount of points, and those points translate into a grant that we give you in funding that you can reinvest back into your program. So we've had people who have gotten enough points that they can actually hire an enforcement coordinator, and they continue to get the points, and therefore the enforcement coordinator can be funded through the program.
Thank you very much. That's excellent.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just a couple of quick questions. And I'm new here, so the other members already know this answer. I'm sorry, but how DG staffing levels changed over the past several years, maybe 5 years?
We are a smaller agency than we were 5 years ago. We've in 2015 we went through an early retirement program where we lost, I think, about 100 FTEs. We did get some of them back through a hire back. I think we got about 35 FTEs back. We are an agency that is also going through a certain amount of attrition. There are people my age and a little older who, started sort of in the 1970s and are now thinking about making life choices and life changes. We've lost some folks through there, but I would say we're while we've lost people, I am once again encouraged by this year's budget, because the proposal for FY18 actually has us expanding in 2 areas important to compliance and enforcement. 10 FTEs for our drinking water program. Again, these are people that will work in regional offices to ensure the safety of our public water systems, and then 5 FTEs for compliance and enforcement activities, again, some of which will very much get into this. So for the FY18 proposal, it also has other things. If we were to be successful in getting NPDES expansion, we would gain FTEs in that program as well, I think to the tune of 12 FTEs. So for FY18, we would be looking at hiring some people.
And beyond FY18, are there other staffing areas that you think need more people there for compliance issues?
Yeah, I think, that's an ongoing question for us. I think, we have certainly put the emphasis on inspections, compliance, and enforcement for these past couple of years. In other words, when you were trying to make sure that you're prioritizing work properly, again, people need to be confident that their drinking water supplies are safe. We need to be able to get to facilities. Again, we need to make sure that we're issuing the permits appropriately, with the appropriate protections in place that allow economic development to continue. So we're continuing to prioritize. Again, I will say for 18, the investment in drinking water and compliance and enforcement is very much what we wanted to see. For 19, when we've had those folks on board for a little while, whether we choose to invest in other areas, I think is a discussion that's probably a couple of months off.
Yeah, thank you. And I represent Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, the Elizabeth Islands, so obviously sustainability is a huge issue, and combating climate change, the whole movement of reducing, reusing, recycling, really important on these islands because it costs a ton of money to get trash off the island. They only have a limited amount of space. And one kind of big push, I mean, there's already plastic bag bans in every single town on every island of the Vineyard and the municipality of Nantucket. But another big push that they would like to see is a deposit for nip bottles and other kind of sports drinks and the like. Have you guys looked into how that could help us recycle more here in Massachusetts?
Again, that's part of what we're excited about in terms of getting the stakeholder process going for updating our solid waste master plan, because we really do need a broad-based discussion about what are the strategies that are going to get us to where we need to be on recycling. And so that we're putting a lot of stock in that. The past discussions that have yielded past solid waste master plans have yielded some great things like the organics ban that went into effect in 2014, and we're looking forward to it. In terms of the expansion of the bottle bill, we're obviously mindful of the referendum that took place last year. However, there are a lot of other areas we can work on, and again, I think we're going to continue to try to make progress on them.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just to continue for a moment on the economic, before we get to some of the environmental questions. The economic side of things, we spoke about some of the in-state disposal capacity. Do you comment a little bit about how much we are exporting at this time and the cost that relates to municipalities?
Yep. We are exporting right now roughly about 20% of that 5 million tons that we throw away each year. It's going to neighboring states. It's going as far away as Ohio for disposal. In terms of the cost to municipalities for that, it's a competitive marketplace, and all municipalities are going out to bid for solid waste disposal services, and their local facility may bid on it, but we've got out-of-state facilities that are bidding on those through transfer stations. So it's basically the system's competitive marketplace, and those prices that are coming in from some of those out-of-state disposal, including the transportation, is equivalent to what's being charged in-state. So some municipalities are moving to that option.
So based on the current models of which you're looking ahead with the solid waste plan, do you see that 20% number dropping, or do you see it growing actually for exporting this?
What I would like to look at is what the commissioner mentioned before, is kind of what is solid waste capacity. Everyone thinks, oh, it's landfill, it's an incinerator. Well, it's not. It's also a materials recovery facility. It's a tire recycler. It's a textiles. It's a Goodwill. It's a Salvation Army. Those are all basically managing people's unwanted materials, and so that should be counted as capacity. And the issue is getting it from the trash over to these other entities. In which case, there's lots of capacity. Organics ban is just a good example of how the capacity came right on board. We got a lot of new facilities, anaerobic digestion operations, composting operations that are taking that material and making valuable products out of it. So I kind of like to look at a broader term of what is capacity to manage our waste or sustainable materials.
Well, using that definition that just came, as other capacity, in-state capacity. So are you envisioning that we would need to do everything in-state and not be an exporter of waste?
I mean, I think that it's, you know, we entertain, we don't build facilities, you know, we're a private marketplace in Massachusetts, and private individuals come forward, or municipalities come forward with proposals to build a disposal facility. And I think there's just some price points at this point that's causing it to be a very competitive marketplace where they may consider the transfer of it before. You know, we would always like to keep it in state in a recycling capacity because it means jobs and economic development for us. So, but in terms of the disposal capacity, we're entertaining proposals now. So if someone wants to build a landfill, we'll go through the review process of that. Obviously, it has to get local buy-in too. And I just think it's a very competitive marketplace, and there's some price pressures that are causing it to be difficult to site in Massachusetts.
Okay, thank you. Now let's get to some of the environmental issues. And I want to thank Henry for going out and getting bottled water, but as you're probably very well aware, I have communities that have been on bottled water for 2 years because of the environmental concerns related with landfills. And I'd like to get into some of that right now. And again, I will ask a few questions, and not to monopolize, I can go back and forth. So if someone does want to yell out or ask a question, feel free to interrupt me. I will not feel badly about it because I have plenty of questions to come back to. So let's start with some of the groundwater and surface water monitoring. Could you please explain right now, how is that done? How is the water monitoring done? And then what is done with those monitoring reports?
Now you're talking about monitoring
Groundwater and surface water, municipal solid waste.
related to solid
Yes.
waste facilities.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
And landfills, yes.
I would, I'm going to turn it over to Gary Moran in a moment for a fuller answer, but as part of the suite of things we look at, if you have an existing operating landfill, or if you have a closed landfill, there are schedules based on what the department knows about the facility, based on what it knows about the hydrogeology of the area that determines a schedule under which sampling will be done. The sampling is required to be reported to the department. We do act on it when we see issues that require us to follow up on things that we are seeing. And again, it's very much based on the facility.
The regs set some minimum requirements for how often you do the monitoring, whether it's groundwater monitoring or gas monitoring. Based on the facility itself, we may require additional monitoring. For a lot of facilities now, the regs require semi-annual monitoring for groundwater. The results are required to be submitted to the department within 60 days, unless the facility has, through the monitoring, determines that there is an exceedance of standard, and then it's supposed to be reported to us within 14 days. At that point, we would decide what the next steps are. Frequently, there will be additional monitoring to assess the situation. If we see a situation where there may be something like a clear pathway to a drinking water supply, then we'll require assessment and additional corrective action. Again, the regs have some requirements as to where the groundwater monitoring well should be. It's really determined based on the specifics, the site specifics of the facility, where it makes the most sense, what the number is required, so we can understand where the groundwater monitoring goes.
So when you find contamination, could you explain what happens at this point? So you find contamination in the area, then what?
If it's contamination, when we say contamination, we have a detection of a contaminant in the ground monitoring above acceptable level. If it's on site of the landfill, these monitoring wells will likely just, often will have to do additional monitoring to see if it's a sustained problem, then you start monitoring for trends. Is it just a one-time thing? Is it growing, increasing? And again, the monitoring is moving into a situation where it's going to have an impact on a sensitive resource, water supply or environmental resource. Then at that point, may require to take additional action to assess the full nature of the problem, but also take steps to address it. And as you know, if it's something that's getting into, from the landfill, getting into drinking water wells, will require them, the most feasible action generally for a landfill is going to be to provide bottled water until a permanent solution put into place. At other sites, sometimes it's easier to put in a pump and treat system, something that can just really address the pollution. That's the landfill's often a different situation. And if it is a problem, that the owner operators then find it the most feasible thing is to provide bottled water, treated water, municipal well.
One of the complaints, if you will, that I hear from people is that DEP, in the case, obviously we're talking about Southbridge, the landfill is located in Southbridge and is impacting right now the towns of Charlton and Sturbridge. One thing that I hear from people over and over is that, well, they continue to monitor, and these volatile organic compounds that have been found for years and years and years and years have been there. So we keep monitoring, guess what? We're still finding them, we're still finding more contaminants. And people say to me, why isn't anything being done? Why, I mean, how many more times are we doing, how many more wells do we dig? How many more gallons of bottled water are we going to provide for people for how long? And again, I understand that we're in a situation right now in Charlton, we're working on a water line, of course that can take care of the water, but it doesn't take care of contaminants in the soil. But when does it stop? And that's what people come back to me. When does it stop? When you have found, and if DEP has recognized that someone is the responsible party, when does it end? When does it end?
Well, in the case of Charlton, the agency did act. It moved the oversight of the program with the detections in the wells. It treated it very much like a 21E type of contamination and spill issue, and that led to the provision of bottled water. There is ongoing monitoring. Again, what the ultimate long-term remedy in a bedrock type of hydrogeology is, I think we don't know that, but the focus, we don't know that right now. I think what the focus is, is to make sure that we're addressing that problem in Charlton. And as you know, we rather than continue to conduct tests to try to get into a discussion about who was ultimately responsible, the state did step in and negotiate a water line agreement where we're using both state resources, and the landfill operator is paying for half the water line, and that agreement was completed a couple of weeks ago. And so we're looking forward to the timely construction of a water supply line for Charlton. For Sturbridge, we're in a different situation. We're continuing to investigate. Mary Jude Pigsley is here. Again, anywhere, we're finding different things in Sturbridge. Again, DEP has provided bottled water in that particular case, and we will continue our work to identify ultimately and definitively the responsible party and make sure they're addressing the contamination on that. So for both of those communities, we're hard at work on this issue in terms of ultimately identifying how to get at the contamination in bedrock. That's a bigger inquiry, but we certainly want to make sure that we are providing people with safe and bottled water, not bottled water, but a permanent supply of water in those communities.
And I do appreciate the work that has been done in Charlton. I know that was a long process, and I do appreciate that, and that the state stepped up for that, where there's some money from bonding that was put in the budget as well. But I do appreciate that. You use the terms ultimately and definitively. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me at what point, what makes it ultimately and definitively that the person is, that there is a responsible party? And then when that is done, then
well, what I'm getting at is when you identify a responsible party, that person owns the ongoing assessment and cleanup work under our 21E statute, and that's really what it means. As you know, in the case of Southbridge, to this day, the landfill operator does not believe that it is responsible. Again, we have.
Well, I don't believe in unicorns either. But that's not, I don't really care what they believe.
But if you allow me,
we
indicated that we think that it is the source of the contamination. But, you know, in other words, if there's ongoing work, you know, again, we didn't want to get into a process where we were litigating this for 10 years. What we wanted to do was get a water line in for the people of Charlton, and that's what we worked on.
Thank you, and obviously, you know, we're getting into more situations into Sturbridge, and so, you know, this is going to continue. And my concern is that until something definitive, as you put it, is done, that we're going to have, you know, this is just going to be sort of this back and forth, that they will continue to get their experts, and, you know, I'm going to agree with your experts, and we go on and on and on, and in the meantime, we have people, it's like Flint, Michigan. You know, this is 2017 in Massachusetts. We're number one in the environment, and yet we can't provide clean water for people who live in our cities and towns.
We're continuing to work on Sturbridge. Again, that's a different inquiry. Again, we are working on it diligently, and you know, we're going to continue to do the best we can to identify the responsible parties as quickly as possible. In the meantime, as I said, DEP has provided bottled water. That is not a long-term solution. That is never a long-term solution. The long-term solution is to have a safe and reliable source of water. But in the meantime, we are working as quickly as we can to put the facts together that will allow us to identify a responsible party.
And I think, you know, just going back a bit, obviously we know that there's talk about looking for an expansion of that particular landfill. And I think part of the concern is that if you go back in history and look at when the VOCs were found, and DEP knowing that those compounds were present and allowed an expansion back in 2008. I think that, and I understand that those are the questions, again, I'm giving them to you because these are the questions that I get from people in my communities. If the expansion was allowed in 2008, when you found volatile chemicals, and if you're finding them still, well, what's to prevent more of an extension at the same time as you know people are being harmed?
I would need to go back and talk with you further about your assertion that things were found in the water in 2008 and that the permitting decision was affected on that. We'd be happy to do some more work on that, but I would need to do some more research on that.
That's fine, and I can provide you with some information that I have on that as well. Before I continue, is there anyone else? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to do one thing to add, and it obviously is, I would say, a unique situation, with specific set of circumstances where you do have at that site also an old unlined landfill, which, you know, what's contributing to the water contamination, we're not 100% sure. As far as new expansion, new landfills, we'll require them to meet whatever the current standards are. So that, you know, that operation would have to meet current requirements in double composite line or leak detection. So it's one of the difficult challenges we face in the legacy problems at a number of landfills, you know, across the state.
Well, even talking, as you mentioned, going with the double line and leak detection. I mean, there's obviously leak detection because even in those double lines, do they all leak? Do all landfills leak at some point? That's my question. The lines leak. Are they at some point? Will they all break and will they all leak?
You know, we're going to use the information that we have available. I'm not sure. You know, based on again the latest standards, all we're trying to do is just make sure that we have enough safeguards in place.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions this time? Yes, please.
Yes, going back to leachate and landfills, and do you know, are there any other landfills, ash landfills in particular, that are leaking leachate, or do we know if any others been tested?
I'm not aware.
So we
Are
don't
they
know.
there?
We don't. So in particular in Saugus River, it's an unlock. So if we're concerned that a state-of-the-art liner at some point is going to probably leak, and according to experts, that's the case. You can imagine my concern and my constituents' concern about the ash landfill in my district that is unlocked. It's unlined in an area of critical environmental concern. It's a wetland, and it's surrounded by 3 environmental justice communities. So where do you know where the leachate, if it's not tested, do you know what happens to the leachate from the facility in my district? Do you know what happens to that?
Well, one thing is on the ash landfill, it's still required to be monitoring. And as I mentioned, while it is different, an alternative system at the time, it is functioning as it was designed, to my understanding. And we can check to see if there are any current issues with monitoring results. I'm sorry. Eric,
No, if I could, just, sorry.
This is Eric Worrell. He's the regional director for our Northeast region that has jurisdiction over the facility.
Yeah, and you're probably aware of this, Representative, but the part of the construction of the landfill that was required by the department for the remedy for the unlined landfill out there was the construction of a full slurry wall around the perimeter of the landfill. So any groundwater leachate that is generated through the landfill can't get outside of that slurry wall. And in addition, there's a full leachate collection system along the perimeter of that slurry wall as well. So any leachate that's generated is transported to Lynn Water and Sewer for disposal, or some of that leachate is actually sent back through the plant itself for quench water as part of the processing.
Okay, so, and then when it goes to Lynn Water and Sewer, what is in that leachate, and where does it go from, once it's in the Lynn Water and Sewer, where is that released?
It's fully treated through the wastewater treatment process and ultimately discharged.
And then it's discharged.
Yeah.
And slurry walls are not a liner, and slurry walls have been proven that they may have been 40 years ago a state of the art. It is no longer, and they do leak.
Yeah, well,
They do, they do.
yeah, well, I mean, I guess a few other thoughts that I would share is one, there is a confined layer underneath that landfill that is relatively impermeable. And I think the practicality is it wasn't really feasible to excavate the entire landfill to put a liner system in, which is why the slurry wall, which is an acceptable technology.
Right, I understand that. So my concern is, even though we know it's unlined at the slurry wall, yet the company continues to want to expand it. I would think at this point in time, where it's in an area of critical environmental concern surrounded by environmental justice communities, plus we have the double whammy of having not only unlined ash landfill in an area of critical environmental concern, we also have the incinerator that burns it. So we have a very unique and probably very profitable of burning and dumping. So I'm concerned that DEP has allowed this expansion to continue for the last 20 years. It was supposed to shut down in 1996. And the DEP continues to give amendments to the consent order, which I find troubling. So, I'm having a hard time understanding, why that is. And it's located in the town of Saugus, yet the city of Revere and the city of Lynn are impacted by this probably more than the town of Saugus. Yet we have no say. Can we address any of that? I mean, do surrounding communities, when something like this is in your backyard, do surrounding communities have any say whatsoever?
Well, Vice Chair Vincent, as you know, this particular application came in. There will be a public process. We committed to a public comment process on this to be held in the community. We're going to make sure that we live up to that commitment and we give everybody their say. And obviously, the applicant has to demonstrate that the applicant is meeting the necessary requirements for it. We heard you that more transparency is required, and we're putting this in the same type of permit process that other facilities would have to follow, and we're hoping that allows for a full discussion of the issues.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Want to thank you very much for coming in. This is the Committee for Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture, and that's what we are concerned about. We wanted to have this oversight hearing early on in our process. We've only had one other committee hearing because we do have a number of bills before the committee that deal with landfill issues, that deal with issues that affect people in neighboring communities where they may not be the host site for the landfill, but definitely seem to be the ones most impacted. And we have bills that relate to that. And we do want to work with you. We do appreciate what you do. We appreciate what DP has done, regional offices as well. And we do want to work with you. But there is a problem. There's a problem that you have identified yourself in trying to meet goals for 2020, for 2050. And we need to work together to make sure that we can reach those goals, but also understanding that we have to make sure that people are protected, that their health protected, the health of our communities. And that, in my opinion, is paramount. That's more important than maybe a company's wallet. I don't care how big their wallet is. What I care about is that people in my communities can turn on their taps and get clean water. And that is what I'm concerned about. So I thank you for coming in and appreciate your time. Would ask from the Mass Municipal Association, Victoria Scapani, and the legislative analyst, David Preston. Correct? I'm sorry, we'll try that again. I apologize, Mr. Town Administrator. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you being here. And I think, as you heard, some of the concerns you have, what is going on in municipalities, the economic impact, and if there are ways we can be helpful, we obviously would like to hear with the Mass Municipal Association representing 51 cities and towns.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Gobi, Chairwoman Caridi, and members of the committee. On behalf of the cities and towns of the Commonwealth, I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify before the committee today. My name is Victoria Scapani. I'm a legislative analyst with the Mass Municipal Association. I'm joined here today by David Pressman, the town administrator in the town of Dartmouth. I want to thank you for your attention to this issue of landfills, solid waste, and recycling. I wanted to give a little bit of background on the MMA's position, and then turn it over to David to tell you sort of the perspective from town. As you know, municipal officials take very seriously their role as stewards of the environment, from providing clean and safe drinking water to hosting solar projects in nearly every community to offering recycling services. Our cities and towns play an important role in protecting the environment. Municipal officials also play a key role in the management of solid waste and recycling in our communities, and some also play a role in landfill management. The MMA supports local options to help cities and towns to increase recycling rates and provide this service to their residents. We also support additional resources to assist communities in managing solid waste and increasing access to recycling in our cities and towns. We support municipal authority regarding zoning regarding landfill operations. Just a little bit about what cities and towns have been doing to divert materials from the waste stream. Most cities and towns across the Commonwealth have built recycling and reuse facilities in an effort to increase their recycling rates. Communities have implemented things such as curbside recycling, instituted unit-based pricing for waste collection, known as pay-as-you-throw, as you know, and other programs to help to incentivize recycling in their communities. Most cities and towns now provide comprehensive recycling programs. According to DEP's 2016 solid waste survey, it looked like 241 out of the 249 responding communities provided some sort of recycling services to their residents. Many communities have benefited benefited, as you heard just before, from programs through DEP to assist them in their efforts, such as the Sustainable Material Recovery Program, the Recycling Dividends Program, and the Municipal Technical Assistance Grant. And Commissioner Suberg has certainly been an excellent partner to cities and towns in working on these sorts of programs. The MMA has cautioned against legislation that would institute one-size-fits-all policies for managing solid waste. We feel that there's a lot of diverse communities in the state. There's a lot of differences in the best way for cities and towns to institute programs to increase recycling rates. And therefore, we would oppose legislation that includes unfunded mandates or preempts municipal authority. And we would support legislation that provides more options and resources to our communities. MMA has also long been interested in having a discussion on producer responsibility legislation. We've long supported paint recycling bills and interested in increasing taking out of material out of the waste stream, not just for municipal, but also thinking about commercial recycling as well. I'm happy to discuss this more, but I want to turn it over to David now to discuss his experience from the municipal side and a little bit about the role that the town plays in landfill operations and their efforts on recycling and solid waste.
Thank you. Thank you, co-chairs and members of the committee for holding this hearing. It's a very important issue. It's an issue I've been involved with for almost 30 years in 2 communities in a number of various areas. Right now, I'm probably blessed in terms of my solid waste and recycling situation because Dartmouth is, along with New Bedford, part of the greater New Bedford refuse district. It was a district created many years ago. The landfill started operation in the mid-90s, and it's been operating very well with few, if any, problems over the past 22 years. The town and the city have worked to reduce their solid waste numbers. In the case of Dartmouth, we're down to about 5,000 tons a year that we're taking to the landfill, and that's for a community of 35,000. So I know when I was in a community of around 25 or 28,000 people, we were doing about 10,000 tons a year without a pay-as-you-throw program. So you can see the advantages of the pay-as-you-throw program combined with the smart recycling programs that we've done. And I think municipalities have taken a lot of initiatives in that area to improve overall recycling and reducing the waste stream going to the landfills. And as I noted, the landfill in Bedford operates very well. It also started out an anaerobic digestion pilot and program, and that started about 2 years ago. And that's very important because when I came to Dartmouth, we had a private sector firm coming to us saying that they wanted to set up a composting type facility. And the director of the refuse district at the time cautioned me about it and said that anaerobic digestion is the way to go. What I can say right now is the DEP's push to move food waste into a composting and away from the solid waste landfills and incinerators is kind of creating some unintended consequences. And we're seeing this particularly in Dartmouth. We have about 6 sites right now that are doing composting. And what's really interesting about those sites is that on 2 of the sites, they flow into something called structured growth. Now, when we do nitrogen readings on destruction growth, it's significantly higher, almost 10 times higher than other parts of the river. So now we're having DEP and EPA coming in and saying, we need to reduce the nitrogen loading in the Slocum River. And who's going to be responsible for bearing the cost of reducing the nitrogen loading in the Slocum River? It's not going to be the people that are operating the compost operations. Because when I talked with one of them yesterday and said, you don't have any stormwater controls up there. If you had stormwater controls preventing the nitrogen going into the river. And he said it wasn't be financially feasible. So we have a situation right now with DEP of unintended consequences where we have a good program in terms of trying to divert food waste, but it's being diverted into places where it's creating other environmental problems and eventually the cost of the residents who have to come up with alternative septic systems. So that's one of the things I would point. I guess another thing I'd point to is we've had a situation with a old landfill in our community. And I'm sympathetic with your problems with your landfill that you've talked about impacting shelters and things like that. And one of the things that when we talked with DEP and Senator Martinez said that I thought really rang true was it would be great for closing some of these sites up if it was sent out on an RFP basis instead of DEP, in a sense, somehow creating a coordination with industry interests to somehow close a landfill. And that there also, I think, needs to be a greater partnership with local government. As I said, I've been in this business for almost 30 years in Massachusetts. I look back about 10 years ago, and DEP had, at least in our area of the northeastern part of Massachusetts, a very good recycling coordinator. She did a lot of initiatives working with municipalities, so we ended up, 5 of us, all going out on a solid waste collection program ourselves. And we were one of the first communities in the state to go with automatic solid waste collection. Those were steps forward. And I look back probably into the early 90s, and I believe the Well administration then had also some municipal coordinators that reached out to municipalities, and there was a lot more involvement and partnership. And I would say, I think from MMA and town administrators and municipal officials, the more partnership and working directly with us would be the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one question. I know from your testimony, Attorney, you talked about some of the local options. Are there things, David, that you feel that that some of the regulations, some legislation, what do you think that we can do to make these some of these options? To make
Well, I think if DEP is putting forth anything with partnerships with municipalities to encourage that. The other thing you may want to have an oversight on, and I listened to one of the DEP staff who is testifying today, is an issue that maybe you want to have an oversight hearing on. It's the whole issue of the Attorney General and their involvement with landowners. Because as I said, I've observed the situation, I've observed 3 landowners of 3 landfills that created environmental as well as significant and costly problems to the community. In each case, I have yet to really see a scenario where the Commonwealth has stepped in and taken over ownership and control of those landfills in such a way that the property owner doesn't have ownership and continue on in the ownership of those landfills. Because I had a situation where I was in one of these times before where they came in and said these are the improvements that need to be made at that landfill. The landfill was closed. But then we were having sewer contractors starting to use that. I said, no, they're collecting money. And I have a landfill now that needs to be closed. And I'm hearing from the AG we can't do anything, but on another piece of property the landowner has, they're collecting rent on a solar farm. So it's a case of how can we, put these people out of, as I see it, creating problems for us, and then sitting back and still getting some kind of financial rewards. And that creates a major problem in terms of accountability with the public and the feeling that the public says that really government is serving them if they see individuals like this getting away with creating an environmental problem and not really paying.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Con, any other questions? Comments? Yes.
So you mentioned composting food,
Right.
and it's a great program.
Right.
But obviously the runoff is polluting this river.
Polluting the
What would
stream.
your suggestion?
I
Because
think
if you have a
that's-
program that's so good, but the fix it, it's gonna be
I
so
think,
cost
I
prohibitive
think,
that
I
it
think
won't
the
sit.
fix is more to encourage anaerobic digestion at a site that already is a solid waste facility, because very often, if it is a solid waste facility like the refuse district that we take our waste to right now, they're tied in already to the sewer system. And any of the waste coming off of this is going in and it's being treated by the sewer treatment plant in New Bedford. So there's a treatment process for the waste that's coming off, and it's contained there and treated and meeting the requirements that DEP, EPA set for allowing waste to go into a body of water. Whereas right now in your food composting, there are no requirements and regulations concerning what the waste coming off of a compost facility is into a stream.
Thank you.
You mentioned diverse communities
Right.
across the Commonwealth and in recycling, and Commissioner talked about it a little bit when I asked him, but how, is it worth us trying to get people on the same pathway? I mean, I know that.
I'd love to get everybody on the same pathway, but unfortunately our citizens and our customers have different values and different concerns. And in a community such as Dartmouth, there is a strong sense of sustainability, a strong sense of environmentalism, and things like that. In another community I work, and they're willing to accept a pay-as-you-throw program. They don't love it, but they accept it. But I've seen other communities that you start talking about a pay-as-you-throw program, and you're taking away every service that they have from the municipal government. And they believe that's the sole service that their property taxes are paying for, and how dare you take that away from them. And until you can get our residents and customers all on that same page, it makes that difficult to accomplish.
Thank you, we appreciate your time and appreciate your testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to ask Trustee Pesci from Conservation Law Foundation.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me today, and thank you so much for calling for this hearing. I know that you're all very busy, and I know that there are many worthy issues in front of you. I would argue that solid waste is one of them that's not only worthy of your time, but an area where I think we can make a huge difference in how we handle our solid waste system. My name is Kirsty Pesci. I'm an attorney at Conservation Law Foundation. Conservation Law Foundation is a nonprofit group that has been working since the 1960s through litigation and advocacy to improve protection of our environment throughout New England. In January, we started the project, the Zero Waste Project. I've been working on solid waste issues since 2008, especially if you don't count the time I spent working in recycling as a kid and working at the Sturbridge landfill when I was a kid. And I've got two things that I would like to speak to you about. There are a number of excellent experts who are up to talk about a lot of different issues. I am going to focus today on two things. One, landfills and how dangerous landfills are. And two, the waste disposal system in Massachusetts and where we really are for numbers and where we really have to go. So landfills, as we've already started to talk about in Massachusetts, some of them are unlined, some of them are lined. Regardless of what kind of landfill you have, how old it is, the main problem with landfills is what's going into landfills. The materials that go into landfills are hazardous, they're toxic materials. Municipal solid waste can contain tens of thousands, literally 85,000 contaminants that then ends up in our municipal solid waste and municipal solid waste landfills. The municipal solid waste landfills also include business and commercial waste, as well as institutional and government waste. So when we're talking about a municipal solid waste landfill, it's not just what's in your home, it's what's thrown away at your place of business as well. What that means is anything can be in there. Likewise,